Hey gamers, Gecko here. The Game Awards! Now I'm sure some of you just had a visceral reaction to that, and that's the correct opinion you should have on this matter. The Game Awards is of course a once-a-year ceremony in which Jeff Keighley shows up in his giant squeaky sneakers and begins talking about the greatest games in the history of that 1 year. I don't know why I phrased it like that. I have a headache. I'm in like quite a bit of pain, if I'm entirely honest. It's really not helping with this giant light in front of me. I just looked into it. Am I stupid? The Game Awards is known for a lot of different things, recently being kind of fucking scummy, but we're not here to talk about Jeff telling developers that love making video games and are so happy to get an award to wrap that shit up. We're not even here to talk about the Muppets. We're here to talk about fighting games. It seemed that in the run-up to this year's award for Fighting Game of the Year, the Game Awards has been under criticism for not really knowing what the hell it's doing. There's a bit of a stigma with the fact that the Game Awards doesn't really know what a fighting game is. If you ask fighting game players, they'll generally be like, well, Jeff doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And I kind of believed this for the longest time. In fact, I saw this year's category, and while I thought it was a little bit weird, I thought it was one of the better ones they've actually done. But that then led me down a bit of a rabbit hole. How bad were the previous Fighting Game of the Year categories? The Game Awards has been going on for over 10 years now. So there's been a lot of data to go back through. And I have a terrible announcement, guys. Most of the time, they get it right. Like, a lot of the time, they get it right. I have a list of the fighting game categories from 2020. I looked all the way back at 2014. I didn't see any massive outliers. Generally, in the entire time that I looked, the only things that I saw were weird was Killer Instinct being nominated multiple times, as well as Nidhogg 2 being nominated for Fighting Game of the Year. Apart from that, everything else seemed pretty standard. Though once we hit 2020, we do get a couple of weird nominations. I'm not going to talk about everything that was nominated, but I will talk about the winners, and we'll talk about the weird games that were also there. So in the year 2020, Mortal Kombat 11 won Fighting Game of the Year. Every Mortal Kombat that has come out since the Game Awards has started, as well as every Injustice, has won. So this wasn't a surprise to anyone. The competition wasn't even really that fierce, and it also really wasn't that strange. Uniqlo was on there, which was really nice, but the only strange outlier was Street Fighter V again, which, a little bit scummy. They already won Fighting Game of the Year a bit ago, but still. 2021, Guilty Gear Strive was the winner, and again, there wasn't any massive outliers. The only weird outlier I would say was that the Demon Slayer Arena Fighter was nominated. But it's still a fighting game, it's just an arena fighter. Nothing that crazy. 2022. We don't talk about 2022. Okay, we will, but we'll get back to it. 2023, Street Fighter 6. Yep, completely expected. Currently still the most popular fighting game on the market, so yeah, of course it was going to win Fighting Game of the Year. There was a couple of weird outliers, the main one being God of Rock, which I had completely forgotten about, despite checking on this category basically every single year. And it seems to be a Guitar Hero fighting game. Honestly, it looks kind of good. Apart from the fact that the charting is going sideways instead of down, it looks pretty fun. It looks like the kind of shit I'd play on the Kosoge Hour, which is happening every Thursday. Including today, we'll get onto it. There was also Pocket Bravery on there, which is very much a fighting game. I just wanted to point it out because Pocket Bravery's kind of cute. I like it. It looks cool. 2024, Tekken 8. Again, of course it won. It was going up against the things like Grand Blue Fantasy Versus Rising and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, but yeah, no, it's a Tekken game, and it doesn't have Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat as competition. Of course it was going to win. And finally, this year, which obviously the winner hasn't been announced yet because the show happens in a few hours, but this year is probably our first real weird one. Basically, every year prior has had something from Bandai Namco, NRS, ArcSys, or Capcom. But this year, technically there are NRS and Capcom games. It's the Capcom Fighting Collection, as well as the Mortal Kombat Fighting Collection. But collections tend to not really do very well in the Game Awards. Virtua Fighter 5 is a interesting addition, but it is a re-release of a very old game, and re-releases tend to also not do very well. Meaning that the two games that are left are City of the Wolves, a fighting game developed by SNK that has actually properly released, and 2XKO, a fighting game developed by Riot Games that's not out yet. Well, not majorly out. It's in early access, and you can pretty reliably play it if you want to, but it's not out. It was supposed to be out, but it's not out. So this leaves our first kind of a stinker of a year, honestly. Only one real new fighting game, and even then, I don't think it's going to win. But for the majority of years gone past, yeah, I would say that the Game Awards has done a good job of picking Fighting Game of the Year. I would say that the majority of the categories are actually pretty well represented. They're well fleshed out with multiple different types of fighting games from multiple different developers, and while things like Smash and Street Fighter generally sweep the awards any year that they're there, it's still nice to see that the games that you expect to win are the ones that are actually winning. So, what's with the stigma? Where did it come from? Well, we gotta go all the way back to 2022. 2022 was actually a bit of a jam-packed year with a bunch of different fighting games releasing. For context, this was the year that KOF 15 and DNF Duel came out. Two games with slightly sour reputation nowadays, but at the time they were relatively big deals. There was also the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Arena Fighter and Multiverses, the first big IP platform fighter we've had in a while. These are all relatively normal games to appear at the Game Awards, but alongside them was a little game called Shifu. If you don't know what Shifu is a single-player action game in which you play as a martial arts specialist going through multiple different levels to try and kill some guy. I've not played Shifu. There's no PvP multiplayer aspect. If anything, it's more closer to a beat-em-up than it is a fighting game. So why is it here? Not to mention, this was also the year that Multiverses won, which a lot of people saw as a bit of a hit job, if we're honest. A lot of people expected KOF to win because it was an established franchise with a new entry, but Multiverses taking it was kind of unexpected. These two things combined and left a pretty bad taste in fighting game players' mouths. Not to mention, Multiverses fucking died. I still can't get over it. Multiverses died, came back, and then in 2024 got nominated again. It's not unheard of for fighting games to be nominated multiple times throughout the Game Awards. Street Fighter V, for example, was nominated multiple times due to it having title updates. But Multiverses coming back in a altered but still same title form was kind of enough for a lot of people to just give up on this category. This stigma has stuck itself to Fighting Game of the Year for a very long time. And considering that this year is a little bit of a weird category, it makes a lot of sense that a lot of people don't really give a fuck about this. I think this combines with a lot of problems that several people have with the Game Awards. Anyway, it's not uncommon for the Game of the Year to not necessarily be the one that people were expecting. Sometimes they definitely get it right. Elden Ring winning was expected, and it won. But like last year, Astro Bot? Fucking really? The Game Awards already has a kind of stigma around it of not treating some categories properly. If you talk to anyone who loves video game music, they fucking hate the Game Awards. Every single year, Best Soundtrack gets snubbed at the start of the show and they don't even really care about it. Fighting games are normally alongside that. I think these general stigmas have led to people not giving a fuck about Fighting Game of the Year. And I don't blame them. I don't really give a fuck either. But it is really funny. And I think this year's Fighting Game of the Year is going to be funny no matter what happens. If City of the Wolves wins, I'm going to be outraged, because that game has less players than BlazBlue Central Fiction. If 2XKO wins, I'm not going to be outraged, but several people will be because the game isn't fucking out yet. If anything else wins, why? I am so ready to watch the car crash happen. I got a big bag of nachos. I got a bunch of drinks. I got party poppers and party hats. And I'm going to be streaming the whole thing as it's going on tonight. And I'm going to be throwing my hat in the ring. Before the show starts, we're going to be playing Fighting Game of the year. I'm gonna let you guys know which one's actually gonna be it. I'll see you all at 11 p.m. BST, which is in hours. I just realized it's gonna take me time to edit. Probably now. Like, if I'm smart, it'll be now. And we're gonna have a great old time. It's gonna be sick. It's gonna be awesome. Come over to the Twitch immediately. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope whatever game you enjoyed made it to the Game Awards. I know my Game of the Year definitely fucking didn't, but that's completely fine. It's gonna be a fun night. It's gonna be really stupid. Fuck you, Jeff, for doing this at midnight, by the way. I fucking hate you. I've had to break my sleep schedule for this. I basically have to call tomorrow off. Do you know how fucking annoying that is? God, I fucking hate the Game Awards. I hate my rotten son. Rotten boy. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.